Before we start today's event, we would like to take this opportunity to thank the supporting organization in of Courts Malaysia, L2I Con International, and Legal Plus. Tun Datuk Sri Zaki bin Tun Azmi, Chairperson of Steering Committee for the AIAC Islamic Standard Form of Building Contract 2024, Tun Mohamed Raus bin Sharif, former Chief Justice of Malaysia, Tan Sri Datuk Sri Dr. James Fung Cheng Yuan, former Judge of the Federal Court of Malaysia, Datuk Sundra Rajoo, Director of the Asian International Arbitration Centre, Professor Datuk Dr. Syed Osman Al-Habshi, Member of the Steering Committee for the AIAC Islamic Standard Form of Building Contract 2024, and Mr. Jalalul Lail Osman, Member of the Steering Committee for the AIAC Islamic Standard Form of Building Contract. Datuk Sri, Datuk, Yang Arif, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Assalamualaikum, good afternoon, and warm welcome to the Asian International Arbitration Centre, or more commonly known as AIAC. We are sorry that Datuk Azmi Muhammad Ali and Professor Dr. Engku Rabiah Adawiyah Engku Rabi, members of the Steering Committee for the AIAC Islamic Standard Form of Building Contract 2024 are unable to join us today due to conflicting schedule. Nevertheless, we would like to extend our utmost gratitude to the Office of the Chief Justice of Malaysia and Office of the Ministry of Work for sending their representative for attending our launch today. Your presence is a recognition of the hard work of the Steering Committee for the AIAC Islamic Standard Form of Building Contract. We'd also like to thank everyone present here at this historic Bangunan Sulaiman and all those worldwide tuning in on the live feed via Zoom. Today marks the official launch of the AIAC Islamic Standard Form of Building Contract 2024, or the AIAC i-SFC 2024. The AIAC i-SFC 2024 represents another advancement in the AIAC's effort to promote the dispute prevention and avoidance mechanism that caters to the demands of those looking for Sharia-compliant construction contract internationally and domestically. To begin the event, we would like to invite Datuk Sundra Rajoo, the Director of the AIAC, on stage to deliver his special remark. Please welcome Datuk Sundra Rajoo.
Yang amat bahagia Tun Datuk Sri Zaki Azmi, yang amat bahagia Tun Mohamed Raus bin Sharif, yang amat bahagia Tan Sri Datuk Sri Dr. James Fung, yang bahagia Tan Sri Ahmad Makyuddin, yang Arif, Tan Sri, Datuk, ladies and gentlemen. Salam sejahtera and a very good afternoon to you all. Today is a very special occasion. It's pivotal in our journey by the Centre and also Malaysia as we gather to launch the AIAC Islamic Standard Form of Building Contract 2024. It is actually not only for Malaysia, but it's for the construction industry worldwide. It is something that has never happened before. We embrace the principles of Sharia in a growing market, which also provides an alternative. And maybe perhaps it may become mainstream in some markets. So I want to reflect on the genesis of this initiative. I was having discussions with Tun Zaki, and Tun Zaki is very supportive of me and particularly of the Centre. And of course, in fact, it's a gathering of old friends here. Tun Zaki is here, Tun Raus is here, Tan Sri James Wong, Tan Sri Ahmad Makyudin. And then, when I was discussing with him, I was saying that I have this idea to create a commercial contract, but Sharia principles. I said, we want to do one standard form contract commercial, but we need to have it practical. And Tun Zaki is a very pragmatic man, also very practical, very understands the world very well. And he is also has the ability to guide. I think everyone knows Tun Zaki's time in the judiciary. It changed the face of judiciary at one point. So his insightful guidance, he actually applied his idea, and the idea at the beginning seemed very straightforward. I still remember we were talking about it seemed very straightforward, but Tun, one thing is that when he goes into it, he just look and then he calls me and he says, look, this is not going to work. I still remember he says it's not going to work, Then he said, what do we have that we can make it work? And I think, crafting a Sharia compliant standard form building contract, you have to have a standard form in the first place before you can move on to a standard form building contract. So what did we look? And then he said, you have a standard form. I said, yes, we have. And then he said, let's use that as the basis. And then I think the heroes today is Tun Zaki and the steering committee. The steering the steering committee, they really shared their wisdom, they shared their knowledge, expertise, and then it is actually something very pioneering. I think even the steering committee had not done this before. They would have done advisory work in contract, looking at things, and commenting piecemeal, but never done a whole contract clause by clause. So it was quite challenging. It was quite challenging at the beginning, but Tun, in his way, he actually managed it. Every week, he will have meeting, which was preset, and he will actually drive it. And I remember some people will drop out, some people will come back. And then I think one of the things is that also we are supposed to provide the secretarial support from the AIAC, which we did. And he was equally fierce. So minutes were kept. Every point that was discussed was actually recorded. So in fact, we have a complete recording, so meticulous. In fact, I learned much more about Sharia and how it applies than ever I will do reading a book. The process itself was quite amazing. So I think, it ties back to this thing that we want to do. We are pioneers, Malaysia, in Islamic finance. We are pioneers in a lot of ideas that relate to Sharia compliance. In fact, our expertise in our universities, our institutions are all there. So I think, this is our little contribution. Then the details, I will let the sessions deal with it. But it ties back with one thing that AIAC always had. It was in 2012, we came out with the I-arbitration rules. We have updated the I-arbitration rules. So in dispute resolution, now we have gone to dispute compliance. So I want to say that the standard form, Sharia compliance standard form contract is, for me, I was just telling Tun, I've been in the construction industry now for 40 years. I've never seen a contract that is complete, first, very clear. I think risk allocation, which is actually more equitable, more balanced. And then the more interesting thing, every component of the Sharia principle, we have it in the footnotes. So I think this is the only, this achievement is actually because of Tun and the steering committee. And I want to recognize that. And I also thank my team, my team that supported it, and some went, because I still remember Tun calling me when the team failed to give his minutes of the meeting. He called me, I was in China, and the first thing I had to do is apologize. And then we got it going again. But that is Tun lah, Tun style. Tun, I will work with you anytime. Anytime you want to do anything that you want to, the ideas. Now, I want to say something about Tun's relationship with AIAC. The building we are in, when we started to get it, I still remember seeing Tun. He had just retired, I think. You had just retired. And Tan Sri Raus was there. Tan Sri Raus was there. And I was talking about the building. And then Tun gave me the advice how to do it. The advice is what resulted where we are now. And I followed it very closely, and he has been following AIAC for so many years. And this is the first contribution of his which is recorded. The others are all not recorded. I can only say it. When I write my memoirs, I will record it. So I would like to, again, welcome you all to this launch. It is a wonderful event in our history. And I also thank, a very short notice, Tun Raus, in fact, also Tan Sri James. And I'm very happy to see the judges and also my old friend Tan Sri Ahmad Makyuddin, PCA, former PCA here. And all of y'all, thank you so much. And we make this form work. Thank you.
Thank you for the special remarks, Datuk Sundra. Next, we are pleased to invite Tun Datuk Sri Zaki bin Tun Azmi, Chairperson of Steering Committee for the AIAC i-SFC 2024 to deliver his keynote remarks.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and a very, very good afternoon to everybody. If I sound sleepy, I'm sorry. I just landed from a trip overseas. I was in Dubai, as usual. And I got here only about 8:30, and traffic jam along the way. I didn't get home until about 12 o'clock, had a bath, short nap, and here I am. So there are lengthy salutations here. I'm not man of lengthy salutations. I will just address to my friends, Tun Raus, Tan Sri Zul, Tan Sri James, and of course, Datuk Sundra, and not forgetting my colleagues on the committee. I think Datuk Sundra was a bit too extravagant with his expression of praises to the committee. I don't think we did very much, nothing special actually. We just took the AIAC format, put there, go line by line, read, and I look at Datuk Prof, is it against the Sharia? I look at Tengku, Professor Tengku is not here today. Anything against Sharia? And then the Encik Jal will say, in my experience with finance, this might be against Sharia. So we discuss, and then we decide, and we go on and on and on and on. But we keep to the strict schedule of having every meeting from 2:45 until 5 or 6 o'clock every Friday. I think we missed one Friday. And because of that, we managed to keep and complete the thing as promised to Datuk Sundra within 6 months. And I had to go overseas. You were supposed to launch it. I had to go overseas. And here I am. Because of me being overseas, I've been away for the last 1 month. And that is why we had to delay the launch. And as I speak today, I'm confident more than ever that the value of ideas lies in the using of it. As Thomas Edison put it, today, as we gather under the grand canopy of innovation and excellence, we are not just using an idea, we are bringing to it life in the form of AIAC, Islamic Standard Building, standard form of building contract, which is in brief referred to as AIAC i-SFC 2024. The journey of the Asian International Arbitration Center, AIAC, has been a storied one, marked by milestones that have each in their turn elevated Malaysia's construction industry to new heights. From its inception, the AIAC has not only been a beacon of resolution and fairness, but also a harbinger of growth and advance for our beloved nation. Datuk Sundra Rajoo has been instrumental in developing the i-SFC Islamic form of building contracts, i-SFC. His visionary leadership and commitment to innovation have transformed the i-SFC from a mere concept to a pioneering framework. With deep understanding of arbitration and forward-thinking approach, Datuk Sundra Rajoo has laid the foundation for the development of his contract and got the steering committee together. His efforts reflect his dedication to elevation of the construction industry to new standards. Actually, what Datuk Sundra said was quite true. There was a function going on here, and before that, I met him in his room. And then he says, and then he came to the function and he says, Tun Zaki promised he will get it ready before the end of the year. I said, he just put a timeline, and there, but we managed to, thanks to the hard-working committee members too. Throughout his tenure with AIAC, Datuk Sundra has focused on broadening his global appeal and stature. His strategic vision goes beyond the contract development to encompass the overall enhancement of AIAC, establishing as a modern exemplary center in arbitration. By attracting a diverse range of users and integrating advanced practices, he is positioning AIAC as a key player in Islamic building contracts and a global preferred institution. His initiatives signify the commitment to AIAC's growth as an innovative, reliable, and ethically driven organization in international community. But you also introduced the I-Sports arbitration. Still working on it? Yeah, okay. I thought you have already launched the I-Sports. And then in delving into the heart of our agenda today, the AIAC i-SFC stands as a testimony to our unyielding commitment to progress, a progress that is rooted in the values of Sharia, which is justice, transparency, and equality. As we witness the burgeoning rise of Islamic finance, a sector expected to swell to $3.8 trillion by 2023, according to a report from Thomson Reuters, it becomes evident that what we are embarking upon is not mere contractual framework, but a pioneering stride towards ethical practice in our robust industry. That's, we have started Islamic finance many years ago, of which Jejal is one of the great solicitors handling Islamic finance. You want Islamic finance, you go and see Jejal. She's in Shillian. So, you go to, I sit in the Middle East, in the Dubai courts quite regularly. In fact, I was sitting there for 3 days. Just 3 days ago. Very interesting case on digital Bitcoins. Some Russians, I think I don't want to use the word defrauded, but ran away with a few $1 million worth of Bitcoins. And I'm told that it was going to be the first Bitcoin decision, full trial, not interlocutory, full trial to be decided in the world, I was told. So, but if you notice, a lot of the agreements are still not Islamic based. The agreements that are in dispute, are impugned at the hearings, not very many are Islamic based. They're still West based on the West. And I think we, Malaysia, I think we should start using the World Islamic Forum, which is going on in Davos today, to encourage the use of Islamic based contracts, whether it is finance or building structure. There's so many other contracts that we should start going to looking into, to convert them into Islamic finance. Because during the 6 months I was doing this work with them, I learned a lot. I learned a lot from Datuk Said. I learned a lot from Cik Jal, as well as Professor Nku. What is Islamic and what is this? Why do you have to do this and what? And if you look at the Islamic principles, they are very, very fair. Unlike the West, which is based on Jewish system, very biased, very one-sided. The stronger party is always the underdogs are always downtrodden by the more powerful parties, unlike Islamic principles. The international community has always set compelling precedents. The UAE, in its impressive skyline, is not just built on sand, but on foundation of Sharia-compliant contracts, which has seen Islamic banking assets in the country owing by 8% as reported by the Central Bank of UAE. Yes, Islamic finance, but I'm talking about the general contracts, agreement, loan agreement. They are still not Islamic based. Saudi Arabia's Visions 2030 has found a cornerstone in Sharia-compliant financing, paving the way for transformative projects across the kingdom. And here in Malaysia, our vision is no less grand. The AIAC SFC 2024, inspired by such groundbreaking work, is set not only to match, but exceed, hopefully, the milestones, ensuring our position as a global hub for Sharia-compliant construction excellence. Let us embark on this journey together, building upon the innovation and the spirit of Malaysia that Malaysia is known for, to not only contribute the growth of our economy, but also to chart a course for future generations to follow with pride. Esteemed guests, ladies and gentlemen, in the fertile soil of our economy, the seeds of Islamic finance have found a nurturing environment. The growth we have witnessed is not merely impressive. It is a harbinger of prosperity and a beacon of potential for the construction industry. As we stand on the cusp of launching the AIAC IFC 2024, let us consider the economic panorama that unfolds before us. Studies, such as those found in the illustrious pages of the Emerald Insight, have illuminated the profound nexus between Islamic securities and economic growth. In Southeast Asia, a region pulsating with dynamism of development, Islamic finance has not just complemented, but significantly catalyzed economic expansion. In Malaysia, a member of the vibrant community, the introduction of Islamic securities has been shown to encourage economic growth through expanding investment and capital assets. This is not conjecture, but empirical evidence reinforcing our belief in the transformative power of the AIAC i-SFC 2024. Globally, Islamic banks with assets forecasted to swell to $3.8 trillion by 2023 are not just growing, they are thriving amidst the winds of standardization and innovation. It is this driving pulse we seek to harness with the AIAC IFC 2024, translating financial growth into tangible infrastructural marvels across our beloved country. By potential economic benefits of the IFC are manifold. By instilling confidence through Sharia compliant practices, we anticipate attracting a broader investment base, both domestic and international. This will not only bolster the construction sector, but will cascade through the economy, fostering job creation, stimulating ancillary industries, and contributing to the sustainable development goals set forth by the United Nations Development Programme. Ladies and gentlemen, the AIAC i-SFC 2021 is poised to be more than a contract. It is set to be a conduit for economic vitality, channeling the principles of Sharia into the very framework of our national growth. Okay, I have said thank you to everybody, but I forgot the secretariat. Where's Chuyin? Chuyin, Yifen, and why are you there? Without you, we would have not done the work. And you are the one who always get the scolding from me. So I'm sorry. I should have said thank you to you all at the beginning. I'm sorry. And Saif, where's Saif? Saif was doing the Googling. When we are not sure, he starts Googling, is he getting the Sharia principles out. So, okay, let me continue then. Innovation is a livelihood of progress. In Malaysia, it flows abundantly. Our nation, graced with the spirit of Malaysia Boleh or Malaysia Can, has consistently risen to the challenges of modern world, embracing innovation with open arms. The genesis of the AIAC i-SFC 2024 itself is a testament to the inventive spirit of the people. It stands as a pinnacle of Malaysian innovation, embodying our capacity to look forward the conventional, to weave the timeless principles of Sharia with the threats of modern contractual needs. As we look across the sectors from technology to finance, Malaysia's story is one of bold strides and breakthroughs. Our tech startups, our financial institutions, and our educational centers of excellence have all been touched by a spirit of innovation. And it is this very spirit that breathes life into the AIAC i-SFC 2024. The future vision of innovation in Malaysia economy is one of inclusive growth, where every initiative, every project, and every contract like the AIAC i-SFC 2024 serves as a stepping stone towards a future where prosperity is shared and development is sustainable. Ladies and gentlemen, as we advance, let us carry this torch of innovation into the realm of construction and beyond, ensuring as the AIAC i-SFC 2024 not only serves as a model for ethical practice, but also a catalyst for the inventive economic solutions. Honored guests, as we embrace AIAC IFC 2024, we are not merely adopting a new contract, we are endorsing a paradigm shift, a shift that aligns the bedrock of our construction industry with ethical and equitable principles of Sharia. The compliance with Sharia principles that lies at the heart of the i-SFC is not just a minor change, it's the DNA of a contract that aspires to transform how we view fairness, transparency, and responsibility in our business dealings. Fairness to bargain, one of the principles of, sorry, I'm going to take a few more minutes, quite long. Actually, I think I didn't have time to really go through this. Sharif was the one who drafted this. I was looking from Dubai. I was trying to read from my computer. I said, okay lah. Too much. I didn't have time to do. Anyway, the principles are fairness in bargain. At the cornerstone of our engagement lies the principle of fairness in the bargain, ensuring that every transaction and the i-SFC is conducted with mutual benefit and equity as its core. Reflecting across multiple clauses, this principle ensures that the spirit of contract remains unadulterated by unjust gain. Prohibition against uncertainty or gharar. The Sharia abhors ambiguity and uncertainty, and this contract has meticulously drafted to minimize gharar. Each clause is designed to bring clarity and precision, ensuring that rights and obligations of all parties are explicitly defined and the scope of disputes is substantially reduced. Do you know the Quran, which is 1,400 years old, contain statements to say that when two parties enter into an agreement, put it in writing. That was the principle, practice, encouraged by Islam. And yet, we forget that. And then it says, if you cannot write, get somebody to write. And you must have witnesses. And these are all practices which we attribute to common law. It is not common law. The Crusaders went to the Middle East and came back in these principles to the United Kingdom of Britain at that time and claimed it as their principles. And there we are stupid people here, yalla, everything is right. What the British say is right, what the West is right. We forget a lot of things, a lot of the principles. I tried getting into writing a book comparing the principles of Sharia with the common law, but I never got through very much. I couldn't get people to help me. I want to compare the principles found in the English common law as well Islam. Trust is Islamic creation. And now we look at English law of trust. And then the next principle is compliance throughout the project. The AIAC, IFC mandates compliance, not just in letter, but in spirit through all stages of the contract. Every asset, every transaction, every decision made under the contract is held up against unwavering light of Sharia principles, ensuring a project that is not only profitable, but also morally and ethically sound. Next one is reciprocal indemnification. The contract embodies the principle of mutual indemnification, ensuring that the duty to indemnify is balanced and equitable. This fosters a sense of shared responsibility and risk, promoting a more cooperative and less adversarial approach to contract management. Clarity and certainty. I've already mentioned that. In the realm of contracts, certainty is the king. AIAC, IFC is designed to establish clear terms and unequivocal obligations, ensuring that all parties enter into the agreements with shared understanding and clear vision of outcomes. Variations and defects. The contract acknowledges the variations are a reality of construction projects, but it also stipulates that such changes must be made explicitly with consent and within the bounds of Sharia law. It also addresses the handling of latent defects, ensuring that the principle of liability and redress are clear and just. Liability and damages. Each party carries its own weight under the AIAC IFC. Provisions for liquidated damages and extensions of time are laid out with precision, reflecting the balance between enforcing contractual obligations and recognizing genuine unforeseen impediments. Proportionally to the next principle is proportionality in non-conformance. The contract recognizes that remedies for non-conformance must be proportionate to deviation. This echoes the Sharia tenet of balance, ensuring that penalties are commensurate with the impact of non-compliance. Next principle, necessity of proof for claims. In upholding the integrity of the contract, AIAC IFC reinforces the need for substantive claims. This aligns with the Sharia's emphasis on the evidence and fairness in judgment, safeguarding against unfounded allegations. Because under the standard building contracts, a lot of discretion is being given to the superintending officer, architect, what is the term used? Superintending officer, what is the term used in the, anyway, the person he has a lot of discretion, say yes or no, and inevitably he is appointed by the employer. So the contractor is always at a losing end. Okay, next principle is custom is authoritative. Recognizing the role of custom and practice, the contract integrates the principle that established norms, provide they do not contravene the Sharia, should guide contractual interpretations and fill in gaps. Next principle is clarity of contract sum and set-off principles. The contract ensures that the financial obligations are clearly defined and understood, and it incorporates the principle of mukasa, allowing for the setting of reciprocal obligations, fostering equity, and preventing undue hardship. So, in every clause, in every provision, the i-SFC 2024 embodies the wisdom and justice of Sharia law. It stands as a beacon of ethical practice, guiding us towards transactions that are not only commercially sound, but also spiritually fulfilling. Esteemed colleagues, the SFC 2024 is not just a document. It is a commitment to uphold noble principles of fairness, transparency, and ethical responsibility in every brick they lay, in every skyline we shape. By adhering these principles, we do more than construct buildings, we construct a legacy of integrity. This is a transformative moment for the construction industry in Malaysia and beyond. AIAC i-SFC 2024 is poised to set a new standard, one where the values of Sharia guide our principles and inform our decisions. It is a standard that ensures that our industry's growth is not at the expense of our values, rather a manifestation of them. As we usher this new chapter with the AIAC IFC 2024, the path ahead is clear, yet demands our concerted effort and dedication. The implementation of this contract is key to unlocking its full potential, and it requires not just understanding, but a shared commitment to excellence. It begins with education and awareness. The IAC is dedicated to providing comprehensive resources and training sessions to ensure that every stakeholder, from engineers to legal practitioners, is well equipped to navigate the nuances of this innovative contract. This is a call to action for all of you to partake in these sessions, to familiarize yourself with the contract, and to become the ambassadors of change. But the journey does not end with implementation. The IFC 2024 is a living document, one that will evolve through practical application and constructive critique. We anticipate that this contract will undergo continuous refinement, shaped by the hands of those who wield it into the field. Your experiences, your insights, and your feedback will be crucial in which the AIAC, i-SFC is tested and perfected. Looking towards the horizon, we see a future where the IAC, IFC 2024 becomes synonymous with integrity and excellence in the Sharia-compliant construction contracts. A future where Malaysia is not just a participant, but a leader in global dialogue and ethical construction practices. This is the vision we strive towards, and with partnership, it is within our grasp. And now the time has come for us to step boldly into the new era. To the esteemed engineers, architects, and contractors, and legal practitioners who grace gathering today, I call upon you to champion the AIAC ISC 2024 in your projects. To see in this contract not just clauses and conditions, but the embodiment of our shared values and aspirations. As Datuk Sundra has said just now, when we drafted this contract, it's not just a contract, we have footnotes. Every clause that we go through, and when we make modifications, because we think it is ultra-virus, the Sharia principle, we put a reason. Or if it's not that, even if we don't change, but we discuss whether it is or it is not a contravention of Islamic principle, we state that as well. So people reading the contract in the future can reason out why we make such a decision, why we have such clauses. And we welcome criticism, we welcome comments, views, how we can improve those wordings if necessary. So please don't say it's perfect, it's not perfect, as I mentioned earlier. It will grow, and we continue to improve it from time to time. Embrace this standard, challenge it, contribute to its evolution. Share your experiences of its application, for it is through your narrative that we will author the next chapter of the Malaysian construction legacy. Let us together sow the seeds of this transformating innovative initiative, so that we may reap the harvest of prosperity, justice, and fairness. Let the AIAC i-SFC 2024 to be the vessel that carries us forward, and let our collective effort be the wind that propels it. I urge you not only to make use of this standard, but to be the vanguard of a movement that will reshape the landscape of Sharia-compliant construction contracts. It is through your hands that the AIAC IFC 2024 will fulfill its promise, and through your spirit that it will transcend transcend the ordinary. Ladies and gentlemen, the journey ahead is as bright as our resolve is strong. Together, we will chart a course that future generations will navigate with pride, knowing that it was here at this moment that we set sails towards a future built on the bedrock of ethical and equitable practice. In closing, let us reflect upon the words of Aristotle, who said, "We are what we repeatedly repeatedly do. Excellence then is not an act but a habit. Kalah bisa, menang biasa. Saif is kalah bisa, menang biasa. You get used to the poison by always using it. So that is my quotation. We don't have to use Aristotle's. Today, as we launch the AIAC i-SFC 2024, we are not just doing, we are becoming. We are becoming the standard bearers of excellence, the architects of a just and prosperous future. May this contract be the canvas upon which we paint a future of equitable growth, and may our efforts be graced with successes and blessings. I thank you again for your dedication and your commitment, and for your presence here today. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, Tun Zaki, for your insightful keynote remarks. It has been our utmost privilege to have you here at launch ceremony. We kindly request Tun Zaki to remain on stage for the official launch of the AIAC i-SFC 2024. Joining Tun Zaki, we would like to invite Tun Mohamed Raus bin Sharif, Tan Sri Datuk Sri Dr. James Fung, Tan Sri Datuk Sri Zulkifli Ahmad Makinuddin to come up on stage to launch the AIAC i-SFC 2024. We also kindly request the member of the steering committee for the AIAC i-SFC 2024, Datuk Dr. Said Osman, and Mr. Jalalulail Osman. Are you ready, Tun? On my count, 3, 2, 1. Ladies and gentlemen, we were pleased to announce that the AIAC i-SFC 2024 is now accessible through the QR code on your tag and on our LED screen. On behalf of the AIAC, we would like to once again thank Tun Datuk Sri Zaki, Tun Mohamed Raus, Tan Sri James Fung, and the members of the steering committee for the AIAC i-SFC 2024 for joining us on this momentous occasion. Now, we would like to invite Tan Sri James Fung to present a token of appreciation to Tun Datuk Sri Zaki as the chairperson of the steering committee for the AIAC i-SFC 2024. Next, Tun Mohamed Raus for officiating this momentous occasion. Further, in sincere gratitude to the exceptional contribution and invaluable commitment from the members of steering committee to the AIAC i-SFC 2024, we would like to invite Tan Sri Datuk Sri Zulkifli Ahmad Makinuddin to present a token of appreciation to the steering committee, starting with Datuk Dr. Said Osman, as the member of the steering committee to the AIAC i-SFC 2024. And next, Mr. Jalalulal Osman as the member of the steering committee to the AIAC i-SFC 2024. Thank you Tun Datuk Sri Zaki, Tun Mohamed Raus, Tan Sri James Fung, Tan Sri Datuk Zulkifli Ahmad Makinuddin, as well as all the members of the steering committee, Datuk Dr. Said Osman and Mr. Jalalulal Osman. You may take your seat now. Thank you. For Datuk Azmi Muhammad Ali and Professor Dr. Engku Rabiah, who are unable to join us today, we will make sure that the token of appreciation is delivered to your doorstep. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, the AIAC is proud to present the AIAC i-SFC 2024. Stay tuned for a short video introducing the AIAC i-SFC 2024. Ladies and gentlemen, we now move to the first session of the day entitled Shariah in Construction, Overview and Potential of Shariah Usage in Construction Industry. We would like to welcome Mr. Salim Bashir, former President of the Malaysian Bar, to moderate the first session. We would like to welcome Mr. Salim Bashir, former President of Malaysian Bar, to moderate the first session. Joining him on stage, our esteemed panelists, Professor S.R. Dr. Khairuddin Abdul Rashid, former Dean of Kuliah of Architecture and Environmental Design IIUM, and Mr. Mubashir Mansoor, partner at Screen.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and good evening to distinguished guests today. And ladies and gentlemen, I'm Salim Bashe, will be moderating the session 1 of the subject, together with me, accompanied by Professor Khairuddin and Mr. Mubashir. Before we proceed on the discussions, let me highlight that I was arm twisted by Professor Sundra Rajoo a few days back on an event of a subject that I have no knowledge at all to be. And I've told him that nothing much I would be able to contribute on the subject, but I will do my very best. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a very intricate concept and that been presented in the sessions today for us to delve into and think about it. Quran, Sunnah, Ijma, and Qiyas combines to form the Sharia principles. Sharia is not a law per se, but it contains a comprehensive set of dogmas, legal and ethical doctrines involving code of obligations. It is geared towards religious evaluations rather than legal considerations. While we acknowledge that Sharia system mainly deal with property and personal property distributions and personal matters involving precepts of Islam, but the emergence in the area of commercial disputes cannot be discounted. With regards to constructions industry, a dispute can cause us multi-billion ringgits of losses. While there are acceptance methods to avoid dispute from a conventional perspectives, the disputes avoidance from Sharia angle need to be addressed. For that, ladies and gentlemen, we have two distinguished guests today. On my right, Professor Dr. Khairuddin Abdul Rashid, and I shall introduce him. He's a professor in quantity surveying and head of project and procurement delivery system research unit in University Islam Antarabangsa, IIU Malaysia. He worked as surveyor in London and in Malaysia for 18 years, and have taught at a university in UK for 3 years prior joining International Islamic University, where he established the Department of Quantity Surveying and also established a master program in the same university. Professor Khairuddin has co-authored and edited 16 books on the subject, more than 180 technical papers and presentations at various conferences. He is also a visiting and adjunct professor at local and foreign universities and a whole professorship in both UITM and IIUM. At the moment, he provides training and consultancy on his area of specializations. Ladies and gentlemen, on my left, my fellow practitioner, Mr. Mubashir Mansoor. Mr. Mubashir Mansoor is a senior law practitioner and has been in commercial and civil litigation practice for over 34 years. His key practice areas involve domestic and international arbitrations, fraud and asset recovery, cross-border disputes, aviation disputes, commercial and contractual disputes. Mr. Mubashir have acted as lead counsel in many notable cases at superior courts. To name a few, Farida Begum against Sultan Haji Ahmad Shah, 1996, Adrash Pandit against Viking Engineering, 1996, Irene Fernandez against Utusan Melayu, 2008, the estate of Tunku Abdul Rahman Al-Haj Putra, 2015, Azhar Harun against Dato Muthukumaran, 2022. He have also co-authored many articles on this area of specializations and gave talks at numerous local and international events. Currently, he's a senior partner in Screen, Kuala Lumpur. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to invite Professor Dr. Khairuddin to give an overview on this subject. Thank you. Welcome, sir.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alamin. Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala ali Sayyidina Muhammad. Tun, Tan Sri, Dato, distinguished guests, session chair and the organizing committee. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and a very good afternoon to all. Before I start, I would like to thank the organizing committee, especially Mr. Safeddin, for managing to get me involved with it. He called me last week. He said it's a very simple presentation. You can share whatever you have done with regard to Sharia construction. Never in my mind that I'm going to be involved with such distinguished guys. I can't remember how many Tuns, Dato and Tan Sri in here. My apologies if my behavior doesn't merit such a cultured group of people. Yeah. Right. Session Chair, thank you very much for the generous introduction, but I would like to make a small correction, which I've given a brief CV to Safeddin, that I've left both the International Islamic University and UITM. I'm now on my own. Thank you. Right, so before I start talking about this subject, and I have about 70 slides, so sorry, it's going to take you whole afternoon, but not to worry. I'm not good in giving speeches, yeah? I'm only trying to lecture on the subject, don't worry. Yeah? This title was given by the organizer, Overview and Potential. So I'm going to pick up on these two keywords, Overview and Potential. Somebody I hope is manning this one because it is not connected to my notebook, please. Or can you just give me the remote? Oh, okay. Yeah. So these are the where is it that I'm supposed to point it then? Yeah. Okay. So these are the framework of my presentation. These are the three areas that I'm going to focus based on the title given to me, what is Sharia? But I'm not going to go into the detailed discussion and definition of Sharia, no. Then moving on, my experience in doing research and consultancy with regards to the construction industry, and I will focus on procurement, contract, and potential to give you an overview of the potential and the impact of Sharia. And finally, on what I consider to be the challenges. When I was told that the event is going to be about 7 or 6 days away, I said, I do not have current data. He said, never mind. Safeddin said, never mind, use whatever that you have. We have been working on Sharia in construction procurement, not just on construction contract, the whole supply chain, basically from the year 2000 when I joined the International Islamic University. I consider myself to be an academic by accident, really. I was in practice as a quantity surveyor, but at that time I was in the Public Works Department, JKR, and among the scheme they have for young officers at that time were to send people like me to do my masters and PhDs overseas. So I'm not doing my masters and PhD based on academic, it's based on practice. But when I came back in 1999 and heading the audit units of Public Works Department, and I've been mostly hated by people, in particular contractors at that time, because I go around looking at projects and telling them what could be the problem with it. And my specialization is in contract administration. I'm not the administrator, I am in administration. Yeah? Then I received a call that the International Islamic University wanted to establish a new department, Department of Quantity Surveying. I was asked by JPA to go there and start the department, hence the beginning of my academic career. So my academic career is only about 20 over years. So at IIUM, Tan Sri Prof. Kamal, almarhum, said that, Khairuddin, when you come here, as what we are doing here, whatever you are doing, whatever is your area of specialization, bring Sharia into it. And that is the beginning of me trying to self-taught myself the Sharia. I didn't go to any formal education on the Sharia. And slowly we develop our skill, our understanding by talking to people in the Islamic faculty, law faculty, and eventually we managed to design an undergraduate course, Sharia in Construction Procurement. And then recently, when I was in UiTM, I also designed an undergraduate course, Sharia in the Built Environment. So I think what those courses can do in order to enhance i-SFC today can be seen from two perspectives. Firstly, it is the training of experts in the construction industry. And secondly, it can work hand in hand in supporting i-SFC. Yeah? Because when more people are becoming more aware of the Sharia in construction, perhaps the worry, the scaredness of the form will be reduced. So here I share an old data. This is based on my student. She's looking into takaful for the construction industry. So in 2010, I think it was, so it's an old data, we talked to architects, engineers, quantity surveyors, interior designers, and so on, lawyers even. They don't quite understand what's the relevance of Sharia when we talk about construction industry. And mind you, at that time, the Islamic banking and finance is already very much in heat. Yeah? So when we asked them, only 30 people, all these are experts, willing to answer our question. So we asked them, what is Sharia to you? And these are all their reply. So I wouldn't say that their replies are wrong, but only a few get it more or less right. I'm not trying to explain Sharia here. We've got the Datuk Sundra Rajoo here. He's more familiar with this. Yeah. So here, I can connect with what earlier on people are saying they don't understand the form. Here I mean people in the construction industry. Yeah. And then when we move on and ask them, can you define Sharia? Again, architect, engineers, quantity surveyors. They said Sharia is Islam. Sharia is Islamic law. Sharia is Islamic contract even. Only a few talk about direction of life for the Muslim. And these respondents, they are all mixed, Muslim and non-Muslim. They are giving their view. I've got the detail, but for the interest of time, I will not be showing them here. So try and compare the views given by the practitioners in the construction industry and views by experts. By the way, this is from Tan Sri Kamal, in one of his works, a chapter in his book. So it says it is a way of life. And the ultimate aim is these 5 issues: Din, Naf, Akal, Mal, and Nasal. So this is what Tan Sri Prof. Kamal said. So there, to my mind, and I suppose it remains relatively true now based on my casual discussion with people in the construction industry, that the understanding of the Sharia is somewhat not there yet with regards to the practitioners in the construction industry. Why is this fellow refusing to move? Safe, why this fellow is not moving? Huh? Yeah, he refused to move. So I'll move on. I'm sorry, I'm in the interest of time. So just to complete my discussion today, so this is, sorry? It's working now, okay. It is this component of fiqh here, fiqh muamalat and the amal here that we are talking about. We are not going to talk about Sharia across the spectrum. It is not about Aqidah, it's not about the other element within Ibadah or Akhlaq. It is about fiqh muamalat, social, politics, economy, justice, man and environment. So that is where these Sharia contracts come into being. Trying to connect Sharia with construction, we believe this is an appropriate definition, but of course it's open to debate. It is a contractual relationship that embraces the Islamic belief, practice, and value system, notwithstanding whether you are Muslim or not. But that is what Sharia in the context of construction is all about, the way we look at it. So the way we did our work from 2000 onward is that firstly, we try to identify what are the key component elements, prohibition in the Sharia, that if those are present in a typical construction procurement or construction contract, then there is problem with the condition of contract. I'm very familiar with the condition of contract because I spent 18 years administering construction contract. So based on our study, and these are from various sources, we established these 10 items. Of course, the first 3 or 4 are people very familiar with. For instance, like riba, things like gharar, those people are very familiar with. But there are a host of items here. I will not bore you with all those items there. And next, the moment we realize these are the things that should not be in the construction contract or should be in the construction contract, for example, we look into the supply chain of construction procurement and try and map our way through what is the best way to deal with the situation. So if I'm trying to provide you with an overview of the workings of the construction industry, of course, it is open to interpretation, but the way we look at it, if we apply an input-output diagram, we are focused on the one in the middle, which is the conversion, i.e. input in terms of manpower, people, material, machine, what have you, and money. The output will be the direct buildings and construction products, but also the indirect between socioeconomic growth and development. So it is the process of initiation, getting the funding, design, approval, tendering, construction, and allocation of risk that need to be reorganized so that those supply chain should be in line with the Sharia. That's the way we look at it. Yeah. And thus began our path in trying to look into how to bring Sharia into construction procurement. And here, in the context of construction procurement, if we base it on the conventional approach, design, bid, build, tender, for example, we have those processes here starting from initiation, leading all the way to completion and handing over, and of course, rebuilding. Yeah. So just for the purpose of current discussion, I try to identify and map out what are the key contracts that we need in a typical construction supply chain. So there at the beginning, during the process of initiation, there are a host of contracts that need to be looked at. The client will have to appoint his principal advisor, a key project manager perhaps, yeah. And then moving on, the key consultant, architects, engineers, quantity surveyors, planners, landscape architects, and the host, yeah. And then they need to approach valuation surveyor for land and stuff like that, and of course, legal input. At the moment, to give you an overview, we are not aware whether any of those documents are moving towards the direction of the Sharia. I'm not saying they are non-compliant, I don't know. But based on our reading of those appointments, consultancy agreement, they call it MOA, Memorandum of Agreement, yeah? They are not anywhere near to what we can call it to be in compliance with the Sharia. But doesn't mean that the practice is haram, don't get me wrong. Yeah? And then moving on, we have funding. Of course, the client will then deal with a variety of institutions, banks, and what have you. It is here where it seemed the focus on Islamic banking and finance. The one before, the upstream, no mention about it. Then moving downstream, the next area where the potential will be during construction when the contractor is appointed. And there comes a host of other contracts. In a typical contract that I've handled, for example, when we are involving with nominated subcontractors and suppliers, 20, 30 contracts is common. But I suspect the one that we are talking today is the contract between the employer and the main contractor. And the scenario here will be different. If we are talking about design and build, for example, yeah, or one of those PPPs, PFI and stuff like that. So we only focus on the traditional system. So when Saf tell me, give an overview. So this is more or less in answering what you have said. So I congratulate AIAC for the starting point between employer and the main contractor there. And I suspect this will spread out. Yeah, because I was given a copy earlier on, visual copy, yeah, earlier on, and I look at the article of agreement, I can't remember which one, and it says that the whole agreement document and associated document should be in compliance with the Sharia. So my immediate reaction at that time is that, how is the nominated subcontracting contract agreement? Because the i-SFC, if I can understand it correctly, I'm not commenting because I've not seen the form, it is between the main contractor and the employer. But the NSC, it will be between the main contractor and the nominated subcontractor as instructed by the client. So there it goes, your next assignment, I suppose. Wallah, I'm not giving him job. Okay. Well, but it is his fault. He opened the Pandora box. This Pandora box, don't get me wrong, sorry, got so many terms I've got to be careful here. I'm talking among lawyers and judiciary here, okay? Right, so we need to try and Sharia this supply chain. Alhamdulillah, we have started there. Congratulations. Now, in our work, when we are trying to look into putting Sharia into the construction supply chain, we map out what are the activities. The i-SFC, I suspect, is the one that I put in red, the red circle there. So we need to look into the provision, which the committee has done, to make sure that that whole pathway there, supervision, payment, variation, extension of time, I don't want to repeat, but those need to be done in accordance with the requirements of the Sharia. And in our study, for example, we attack many different angles depending on funding and also time and other resources availability. For example, recently, in our most recent work that we have just sent the paper for for publication, it is being evaluated by USIM. Yeah. So in that paper, we discover that there are several components in the current conventional contract that is neither haram or halal. So we put it into the category of shubha. We're not sure, so let's see what the expert is saying. But why it become a shubha? I just give you an example because this is just fresh. Only end of last month we sent it for review. I give you an example on the provision on insurance. Yeah. So current contract requires the contractor to take insurance. There are 3 or 4 different types of insurance. I don't want to go into the detail. If we follow the PAM form, it is an option. Either the employer or the contractor can provide the insurance. But in government form, it has to be the contractor. But the current clause states insurance full stop. So I bring the matter to a few Sharia experts and they say that provision, if it exists, it is haram. I said, why? It is haram because there is already a clear fatwa that say that conventional insurance is haram. Right. So what happened, I said, what happened here is that although we have alternative, but we are now transferring the responsibility of making that decision to the key players. And these key players may or may not be aware. So if we want it to be Sharia compliant, we have to define that insurance must be in the form of Sharia compliant, a small extension to the term, or right away takaful. Then it will not become haram. So at the moment, because of the situation as such, we label that provision as shubha. Why shubha? Because people are aware there are products out there, but there is no clear definition in the contract condition. So you are now transferring that responsibility to the parties. The parties may have got so many other things in their mind, economic reason, familiarity, for example, that may or may not want to take up that issue. So that is shubha. Wallahu alam. So moving on. Yeah, again, this entire points here need to be looked at, and we are moving in small steps, but alhamdulillah, AIAC has done it. Now, what are the potential? A lot, really. So we need to try and make sure that the entire supply chain of construction, from the beginning, initiation of a project, until handing over, ought to be in compliance with the Sharia. What happened now, time and time again, I listen, I debate, that people are only talking about the funding component. I have trouble with the funding component personally, because under the current system of istisna, which is a manufacturing contract, but the Islamic banking and finance use that to become an Islamic funding tool. Originally, istisna is a manufacturing contract, a contract between the contractor and the client, not a financing agreement, right? So, I have issues. Why I said I have issues? Because one of the items that we found in our non-Sharia compliant is talaki rukban, middle person. So the current istisna practice in funding promote middle person, i.e., I'm a buyer or I'm the client, I want to enter into a contract to build a building, I will then have got to go to a bank, Mr. Bashir here, the Salim Bashir. He is the bank, so istisna. He is not the manufacturer. He is going to go to Mr. Mubashir in another istisna for Mr. Mubashir to construct, deliver to Mr. Salim and to me. That to me is talaki rukban. And in that process, there's going to be a middle person, there's going to be extra charge. Whereas the original istisna is for me and Mr. Salim Bashir to enter into an istisna contract. If I don't have money, I go to Islamic banking, borrow money. If he as a contractor can't afford it, he go to Islamic banking, borrow money. What is this business that he's talking about? In our latest publication, 2019, Sharia in Construction, published by World Scientific Singapore, we have criticized that. Wallahu alam. But again, of course, these are open to debate because it is a developing ideas, isn't it? Yeah. So most apt that we should be looking at it, we embrace the concept of halalan toiban. Again, when I talk to Sharia expert, they talk about halalan toiban in terms of product, in particular food. But I said, the constructed facility is a product, isn't it? So leading to your completed building, the whole supply chain should be halalan toiban. Why are you only focusing on funding? I said, that's number one. And number two, I said, and this attract many Islamists into it. We need context in doing this research. And I would like to suggest this to AIAC, but also that if we talk Sharia generally in construction, people don't pay attention. What did we do? And we gained almost 700,000 worth of grant. We apply contact. What is the contact? Islamic philanthropy. Zakat, wakaf, sadaqah. So if you want to fund using Islamic philanthropy, it is Islamic in the sense. So why is it that the outcome and the supply chain are not Sharia in compliance. So with that, we managed to attract attention. So there I said most apt for the application in project funding or funded by Islamic philanthropy, zakat, wakaf, sadaqah. So as a contact, and mind you, zakat and wakaf in particular, they are now procuring quite a fair bit of constructed facilities in the country, and it's going to grow more. And you guys are trying to promote this to Middle Eastern MENA region, for example. Based on our current study, again, we need to look it into detail. There is no clear Sharia compliant comprehensive contract there. And what is very dangerous that we found out through our association among quantity surveyors, for example, when they manage construction contract, they Sharia it sometimes by having a small clause toward the end. In the event of dispute, blah, 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 Sharia rule prevail. Now, the question for the practitioners, if it is not defined, what Sharia rule? And in certain countries, they are codified. In some other countries, they are not. So we don't know. So where are the potential? I said, MENA region, Muslim majority. Oh no, we'll be less. Yeah, that's the trouble. You guys ask the lecturer to speak. Yeah. My apologies. My apologies. I'm finishing, Mr. Bashir. Don't worry. Yeah. So the MENA region definitely, and I'm sure you guys knows about it in Muslim majority countries, But in our country, let us promote, and I would like to work with zakat and wakaf in particular to make sure that their procurement comply with the Sharia. Because based on our studies by my student, for example, when they procure using this funding, the procedures are conventional. Now, in terms of acceptance, this is a fairly new study, 2015, and this lady here, she got her PhD in construction claims using takaful, because we understand that the current process of contractors claim in takaful, but the procedures are not in compliance with the Sharia. So through the PhD, we come up with a complete framework for Sharia compliant assessment and payment of claim for contractors all risks. So we ask, again, expert, what they think about takaful in the construction industry. And this, I'm using it to give you an idea about what they think about Sharia as a whole. So in terms of acceptance, very high level of acceptance. In other words, this contrasts with what I said earlier on. Lack of understanding, but they want it. So therefore, it is a duty of us in order to try and bridge this gap. Yeah. Last slide. What are the challenges? A lot. From the academic perspective, the challenges are, people in the industry themselves are not very familiar. When we talk about Sharia, I remember I shouldn't go into the detail though. I went to one of the bigger organizations in the country, talk about trying to work with them towards Sharia compliant procurement. And mind you, they are the single biggest client in the country. If we can influence them, we can influence the using of this i-SFC, for example. But they say, what's wrong with the current form? I said, there is nothing wrong with the current form. The only problem is that if we want to embrace Sharia, we need to look at it. I said, I'm not criticizing the current form. I'm not even a lawyer. I said, I'm not qualified to say your form is wrong. I said, but I want to embrace Islam into it. I said, so they don't understand. And of course, I call upon the academic community, but also institutions such as AIAC. More research and publication is required. Because you go around, look for Sharia compliant. Now, you try and Google Sharia compliant. Khairuddin names come out. No others. Why? Because people find it very difficult to look into an area that they are not familiar. And I've been challenged many times by people who are good in Sharia and fiqh. They say, Ana mengaji di mana? If you get what I mean. In other words, because I'm not qualified to even talk about it because I'm not trained in the Sharia. I said, the problem is not me, the problem is you. I said, why? You know the rule, but you don't know the practice. I know the practice, I've been practicing, but I don't know the rule. Can't you work with me? Rather than asking me where I'm trained for, of course, I've not trained in Jordan, Medina, Saudi. No, I'm in the UK. And if I didn't go to UAE, I don't know what happened to me. Wallahu a'lam. Thank you, Mr. Bashir. I've taken much more of your time. Minta maaf. Assalamualaikum.
Wonderful presentation. We're not going to let you go as yet. You have set tone for our immediate discussions. And next speaker have told me that he's waiving his rights to give an overview presentations because before the ex-judges and sitting judges, he said he wants to go straight to the point. Ladies and gentlemen, with this, we will have brief discussions on the subject, and I will pose these questions to both our panelists today. The first questions for both panelists, you can decide whom to answer first. What are the fundamental principles of Sharia that apply to construction contracts? I invite Mr. Mubashir to explain the concept.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon to Zaki, to Raus, to Sri James, to Sri Zulkifli, distinguished guests and members of the audience. At the outset, just two caveats that I should put in place. Number one, I am just looking at the subject as a practitioner, counsel, arbitrator, and mediator, rather than Islamic scholar. I'm not a scholar of Islamic finance and all that. And number two, day before yesterday, Datuk Sundra Rajoo called me and requested me to become a speaker. And when he called and when you spoke to Datuk Sundra Rajoo with his persuasive skills, it's very difficult to say no. More importantly, the reason I mentioned that is that if I were to say something which turns out to be wrong or inaccurate or inadequate or otherwise tainted by intolerable shortcoming, then judges here should know that I should have a defense of acting in necessity. I don't have much to add, except that within the short space, one day time that I had, just to point out a few points. And of course, we have this i-SFC, which is largely adopting the conventional one, but with modification to make it compatible with Sharia principles. And I suppose the principle is that Sharia scholar could correct me if I were to go wrong. Anything which is not un-Islamic is Islamic. And I noticed that there is this Article 11 in the terms of the contract, which stipulates, if I remember, that if any provision were to turn out to be Sharia non-compliant, then the parties undertake to amend the agreement to make it Sharia compliant. So in other words, that embodies a very important principle that the court should strive to uphold a bargain. And the court should not be trigger happy to strike down a transaction. And this principle has existed in Islamic law a long time ago. And I think judges will remember, so far as common law is concerned, cases like Charles Grenier, which I think referred to Armagas, where it is stated that you cannot expect businessmen to write a contract in a language which is suitable to the lawyers. You have to construe their language to make it work. So Article 11 is a very important, I think, overriding principle in i-SFC that shows the desire of the steering committee to make it work, which is reflective in the Islamic principle itself. And a written contract is, of course, an important feature of Islamic law. I think Tun Zaki touched on the subject that Allah says in the Quran, If you were to make a contract, it would be better if you were to reduce it in writing and be witnessed. And if I remember correctly, Tun is Al-Baqarah 2282. The next verse says, 2283 if I recall, 2282, 232 is it? And the next verse says, you must not conceal evidence either. And earlier on, Allah says, I think 2280 probably, that when debtors ask for time, give time. But better if you were to remit the debt. Yeah? And we have the concept of justice, again, which is reflected in this IFC. I do remember a verse, I can't put my finger on it now. Do not let your hatred to anyone cause you to be unjust. So to be a judge, you have to be just, even if somebody that you do not like appear before you. And I hope that I'm not one of those. So that's one point that I wish to make. And the other, I just want to show that, as I said, what appears to be the practical advantages from a practitioner's perspective. The other aspect, if I remember correctly, is clause 2.1b, where the contract administrator must act impartially and in good faith. It's very strange, very rare to find the word good faith found in a contract. As you know, in English law, there is no general duty to act in good faith in commercial contract, except as the context otherwise requires. So for instance, if a party is given room to exercise discretion, then chances are that the court may imply the duty to act in good faith. But here it's embodied. And of course, that is a reflection of the Islamic principle of acting with fairness, transparency, and so forth. The other aspect which I wish to point out very quickly is, if I recall, Sharif can correct me, 2.1a, where contract administrator does not have the power to modify, vary terms of the contract unless expressly stated otherwise. And I think that's related to the war damage clause, section 32. The word or implied is removed. And again, in my limited knowledge of Islamic law, that reflects Islamic principle that generally, in order to attain certainty of terms of contract, Islamic law does not encourage implication, does not recognize implied terms, except I think in two situations. Please correct me if I'm wrong, the scholars. Number one is force majeure. And in our case, we have it in the form of section 32, war damage, and establish custom or trade, which I think don't touch earlier on. So that's a very positive thing. And when we remove the concept of implied term or implication of term, we essentially have extricated ourselves from having to deal with issues that we deal almost daily in common law courts. Lawyers argue before a bench of 3 members federal court that this term is implied. Then we refer to Justice Peswichin and Sababumi talking about the officiate bystander test, about the business efficacy test. And then you got 2 judges say, yes, term is implied. The other one say, no, I don't think so. Then we apply for review. So it never ends. So it does take away that issue in the sense that it revolutionized contractual terms. And the other thing is of course, you have the removal of interest, I think in section 35(6). See, that's obvious, that's fine. So those are, so far as contractual clauses are concerned. I should not speak too much about that because I think that will be transgressing the realm of the second session. So just to mention a few points from the practical perspective. What I think I would like to talk a little bit more is the challenges that i-SFC would face henceforth. And top of the list is, of course, how do we market it? That's a question of, it's divided into two, domestically and internationally. Now, domestically, I think Malaysian as a whole always have a problem of promoting our own product. We tend to prefer other people's product. The reason I'm saying that is that you got AIAC, then you got i-SFC. If all the government contracts entered into by statutory bodies, GLCs, in the nature of construction contracts, were to embody i-SFC, you already take care probably 50% or 60% of local market. And as far as contractors locally, whether they're Muslim or non-Muslim, and particularly non-Muslim, if you show that it works, they will just do it. And if I can do a comparison or analogy, I remember when growing up as a young lawyer, still relatively younger, not too old, at the time when Islamic products, banking, were first introduced in the market. You know, people used to say, "Ini untuk lebay kampung" and all that. But look at it now. I dare say that I'm right if I were to say, majority of the consumers for Islamic banking products that would be non-Muslim businessmen. So as far as non-Muslims are concerned, they're very simple. You show us it works, we'll follow. So I'm hoping, because as I told Datuk Sundra Rajoo, Sharif and all that, you know, I may not be part of AIAC, but I do feel for AIAC. When I go overseas and I talk to my counterparts and I talk to my colleagues, they do ask about AIAC. They would like to see AIAC regain its previous glorious days, overtake SIAC. And if you think about it, SIAC is 3 times more expensive than us, and yet people still go there. So when I talk to my foreign colleagues, and I said, "What's the problem?" And they say, "Look, it's just a matter of perception in the business community. You just got to redress that perception." And I hope that this is one of those. And if we can promote this, particularly to the Middle Eastern countries, in what ways, if I can assist in any way, I'd be more than happy to do that. So that's so far as the domestic market is concerned, which should not be too difficult if we can start off from the executive support. That's one thing. And number 2, foreign investors coming in. Only day before yesterday, a colleague of mine in the office told me that clients from Dubai came in and inquired of opportunities for investment in construction industry. Yeah? And that will be our market for this product, because if you have Malaysian subcontractors going to Dubai or going to Saudi Arabia, which I'm told are embarking on some seriously big project construction now, almost invariably you will be forced upon to use Dubai DX arbitration rules or Saudi Arabia SCCA arbitration rules. Now we can do the same thing when they come here. So we need to need a cooperation of executives, statutory bodies, GLCs, and hopefully the private sector lawyers advising clients to use i-SFC. So in principle, I do see a huge potential market for i-SFC domestically and internationally. It's just a matter of us marketing it through the right channels. And I've mentioned this to Datuk Sundra. If there's any way that I can assist, I'll be more than happy to do that also. That's it. And just to close the subject of potential, and I think, I don't know if there is any representative from the executive here, but if we want to promote AIAC as a hub for Islamic contract arbitration or dispute resolution as a whole, I think there are 1 or 2 supplemental things that we can afford to do in order to facilitate the process. And one such thing is third-party funding. See, you've got Financial Services Act, for instance. You also have Islamic Financial Services Act. Now, third-party funding, yes, there are pros and cons. But if you regulate it, it will work. And many jurisdictions have regulated third-party funding so as to make sure that the terms of third-party funding are not in contravention of any statute or any public policy. Then it will provide a tremendous route or access for justice. So if you have, for instance, a major foreign investor coming in and then using i-SFC, contracted with Malaysian entity, dispute arises. The foreign chap has got tremendous financial means. Our local chap, not much. If he does not have access to justice through financial means properly funded, he is going to be subjected to corporate bully. So this is, I don't know why, I must say that the executive, I don't know whether this is an issue of priority to the executive, but I think we should seriously consider putting this in place. There are many legislations from foreign jurisdiction that we can learn from, even Singapore, Japan, Korea, Australia, I believe, and they've regulated. There are reputable third-party funders. In fact, I've talked to one or two in Europe when we had online meeting through my foreign lawyer. So these are the available, which I think part of the challenges that should be mentioned. In other words, having i-SFC as a document is good, but it's not good enough. If nobody knows, it's just like, in normal practical life now, it's not good enough to be good. You must be visibly good. Simple as that. And the last thing that I should say, if I have 2 minutes, is the dispute resolution mechanism clause. I think it's in clause 34. That is a commendable clause. And of course, the concept of timbang tara or arbitration is well encapsulated in the Quran. Again, if I remember correctly, I can't put my finger on the verse. Actually, the concept of arbitration exists in the context of spousal dispute. There is a verse. When spouses are not on good terms, then each should appoint a representative from each family member to conciliate, reconcile. So that concept already exists. So like Tun said, there are many concepts that already existed in Islamic law. Mat Saleh borrowed it, modified it, and it became theirs. Say, for instance, in hudud, you cannot convict unless you have attained that proof beyond a shadow of doubt. Mat Saleh tengok, they say this is too difficult, beyond reasonable doubt. So I'm saying that, sometimes we, like Toan said, it's a pity that many things that common law adopted from us subsequently grew up as bodies of laws as if it belonged originally to them. So I think hopefully we can reverse that process sometime. I am very positive, inshallah, that with all the support from people involved, not only SFSC, but arbitration rule, Islamic and conventional rules will be very successful. That is all that I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Mubashir. Wonderful insight that been given by Mubashir to let the discussion going. He touched on a raw nerve. He says he seems to suggest a very simplistic term that Sharia usage can be done, is doable, even in a multi-ethnic, multi-religious country. Ladies and gentlemen, when you're talking about constructions, we are dealing with financing. We're dealing with supply, outsourcing of supply and materials. We're dealing with completions and purchase. How is it ever possible for all these things to be done on a halal transactions? Professor, would you like to enlighten the assembly today on whether it is possible for us to get all these things done in a permissible halal transactions?
Thank you, Mr. Session Chair. This is a very complicated question. Yeah. Can it be done? I mean, as a Muslim, my answer is not that can it be done. It has to be done. The question now is how do we go about trying to achieve that? And I've already presented the overview, the multiple contracts that we have. I call it upstream and downstream in addition to the main contract, for example. Yeah, we need to look at those one by one and then embrace Sharia into it. We might not be able to do it at one go successfully. So what happened with the i-SFC is a step in the right direction. If we follow this momentum through and through, inshallah, we'll be there. So a short answer, yes, I think it can be done. But a very short answer to that is that you have to do it. We have to do it, we as Muslims. Now, Mr. Mubashir talked about the potential of this form and it ought to be marketed. I agree with him. It is not an idea against it. It's just that we need to understand the way the construction industry works. That is critical. Yeah. For those who are familiar with the construction industry, me included, for example, is that when a client intends to build, their first port of call will be either to a QS, but more importantly to an architect or an engineer, depending on the structure that he wants to build. Building will probably be to an architect. Civil engineering in nature, road, bridges, they will go to an engineer. These guys, architect, engineers, even QS in those days, but not now, they have their own standard forms. So it is important on their part that if, for example, you go to an architect, in the process of initiation, among the things that will be discussed is the condition of contract. The standard form of contract, now we have PAM 2018, for example, will become part of the package, So in order to promote this form, we need to try and inform these groups. We need to educate them, but more importantly, we need to work with them. In the context of the Malaysian construction industry, based on our practice, for example, the single largest client in the country is the government. Very big, billions worth of projects they're implemented every year. And the Treasury requires that all contracts must be done in accordance with the PWD 203 series. So at the moment, it is difficult to bring in the i-SFC into public sector contract unless we can work with the Treasury, for example, to embrace this idea. So I agree with Mr. Mubashir, but we need to look into how to reorganize our thinking process to work together with the architect, the engineers, with the surveyors, so that we can move together as a team. And in Malaysia, and in fact, rest of the world, construction contract is very much standard. Very seldom we have bespoke, except of the later contract where we involve PPP, PFI, and that sort of thing. But that also now a growing tendency for a standardized form. So, Mr. Sharif, that is my answer.
Thank you so much, Prof. Ladies and gentlemen, we're running out of time. We only have 2 questions, one for each panelist, and then we take 1 question from the floor, and we'll wrap up the event today. Mr. Mubashir, what are the legal considerations and challenges in drafting a Sharia-compliant construction contract?
There shouldn't be too much of challenges. You can just adopt i-SFC. And perhaps if there were any peculiar requirements from a party, that should be minimum, because I see i-SFC is very comprehensive. It is not perfect, of course. Obviously, as time goes by, then we'll see what are the challenges made in court. But there is that, as I said, overriding provision of Article 11, which is very important, which means that the concept is that once you enter into the contract, the law expects you to make it work. So I don't imagine insurmountable challenges. The only challenge I could foresee is whether there would be initiative for lawyers advising clients on construction contracts to advise their clients on the potential benefits to be reaped by incorporating i-SFC, as I hope they would do that. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Prof, final questions to you. How do developer and contractors benefit from using Sharia compliant construction contracts? Yes. How do developers and contractors benefit from using Sharia compliant construction contracts?
How do developers and contractors benefit? Fair and equitable. Clearer in terms of accountability and transparency. Because at the moment, the issue of fair, equitable, for example, again, I've just, well, not just last year, I did training for one of a bigger construction company in the country. Yeah. So we are talking about payment. And here your question talk about how they can benefit. So in that condition of contract, because they revise the standard form of contract to become theirs, the standard in the market, they plug it in, they revise it. The term of payment is that it is 3 months. In other words, between the time the work is accomplished on a monthly basis, they submit their claim, yeah. So there is a period of 3 months, only the client is obliged to pay. Under the government contract at the moment, yeah, it is 30 plus 14 days, i.e. from the time of valuation to the issuance of the certificate, and once the certificate is received, the client must pay within 14 days. Otherwise, there will be a breach. Yeah? But in that form, the client has 3 months after the certificate. So in that training I asked, is that fair? So now I didn't look at this i-SFC, so I can't comment it. But if we are talking about fair and equitable, so if the terms are fair and equitable, then why can't they benefit from it? I mean, can you imagine you construct probably this month worth 500,000, yeah, or 300,000. You submit your claim, you get your certificate. You have to fund the project 3 to 4 months in advance. How many people can do that, isn't it? When we're talking about into the million. Right, so I don't want to go into the detail because I know time is pressing. I love to talk a lot on this subject because we've been working on it for years. But yes, it can be done because people hopefully will see the fair, equitable, transparency, accountable. People are a lot more responsible because the clause says so. No, what do you call, ambiguous. Again, another example. In one of the condition of contract that I'm familiar with, clause 11, if I'm not mistaken, talk about that the contractor during tender is deemed to have visited the site. They know everything about the site. And client's information given to the contractor to be interpreted by the contractor. The client's organization are not responsible for it. So in other words, the risk element there is huge. A contractor going in will have to make allowance depending on what he has in his mind. If he wants his tender to be competitive, he put a small allowance. If he's not going to be competitive, he put a lot more money into it. How do you know underneath? You can't, for the time, tendering period is 28 days. Unless extended within the next 3-4 weeks, you know. But generally, in 28 days, you can't study what happened on the site. The most you can do is you go on the site, call for some soil report, geological report, and that's about it. You don't know what's underneath. You don't know what happened around it. And suddenly, boom, in one of my projects that I act as a QS, for example, when the contractor is excavating on site, because it is defined as soil, earth, yeah, D8 broke. In other words, that soil is too hard. But the contractor hard, but not rock. Rock require blasting, a different game altogether. So the contractor has been told you cannot claim because you have already taken care of clause 11. You have visited the site. It is deemed that no claim arising from the site because you should know. Now, if the i-SFC look into this carefully, a fairer terms come into being, they will be happy, isn't it? I mean, in one of my studies, again, another PhD is produced through this study. I don't know, I'm talking this among lawyers and judges, yeah? But we promoted what is called as an incomplete contract. In other words, in order to be Sharia compliant, the parties agree to sign a contract with provision therein that we will agree in the future if it happens. The detail, that I leave it to the lawyers. And it accepted, and she got the PhD with it. So in other words, like for example, that clause 11, we put it as an incomplete contract. So when it happened, you look at that point in time, you measure, you value according to that point in time. So that those guys, when they sign the contract, they are not going into my sale, for example. It's not gambling, it's not zero-sum game. Or it's not gharar. Wallahu alam. Thank you.
Thank you, Prof. I love to get this intellectual discourse going, but it's unfortunate. I've been told that we have another sessions to go on, and we have to come to an end. Before we end the sessions, there's one final questions from the audience, which I'd like to read out, and Mr. Mubashir would like to take these questions. If there is a PMC between contractor and the client, can the PMC be considered a middleman? And he have a caveat there. He put a caveat. Sorry if my question offends, and I apologize of it if it did. Thank you. From Terence So. Thank you. Mr. Mubashir would like to answer this.
I think with respect to the purpose of today's discussion, perhaps the question should be confined to the terms of i-SFC. And I think question of this nature is probably better suited to be dealt with in a different forum. But I think what I would say in brief is just that i-SFC has incorporated the essential Islamic law principles and all the factors of risk sharing, no unjust enrichment, transparency, fairness, and all that. Like all contract, like any contract, no contract can be perfect, but I'm quite sure that if there were to be any element in the contract or in the implementation of the contract which should turn out to be un-Islamic, that will not be upheld by the arbitral tribunal or the court. As to whether a middleman and all that, I prefer to see what are the exact circumstances that you are referring to in order to give. It's not something that you can give a general answer. It's not very wise to give a general answer to that. Thank you.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Before we leave, I shall leave you with the Quranic verse, which I have quoted from an article written by none other than the AIAC director, Professor Datuk Sundra Rajoo. I shall read. This is what being referred as well by my learned friend, Mr. Mubashir. If you fear a breach between them twain, in bracket, husband and wife, appoint two arbitrators, one from his family and the other from her family. If they both wish for peace, Allah will cause their reconciliation. Indeed, Allah is ever all-knower. Surah An-Nisa, chapter 4, verse 35. With that, ladies and gentlemen, I shall thank both the distinguished panelists here with us today for their intriguing discussions. And I also would like to thank Professor Sundra Rajoo, the Secretary of AIAC, and the distinguished guests, Tun Zaki, Tun Raus, Seri, James, and learned eminent jurists that presented and I have followed the sessions today. With that, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much.
Thank you to our panel of speakers and moderator for the insightful session. May I kindly request the panel to remain on stage. I now invite Tun Mohamed Raus bin Sharif to present a token of appreciation to the panel and moderator on behalf of the AIAC. Thank you once again to our speakers and moderator. You may take your seat now. Before we proceed to our second session of the day, let us take a short 10-minute break. We will resume the session here at the auditorium at 5:05 p.m. Light refreshment are served at the pre-function area. It's right next to our auditorium. We will see you all shortly. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, we now move to the second session of the day titled Drafting for the Future, Customizing the SFC to Embrace Sharia Principles. With that, we would like to invite our panelists on stage for the second session. Our moderator, Puan Sharifah Shafika Al-Saguf, partner at Screen, and our panelists, Professor Datuk Dr. Syed Osman Al-Habshi, member of the steering committee for the AIAC i-SFC 2024, Mr. Jalalulail Osman, member of the steering committee for the AIAC i-SFC 2024, and professional technologist SR Muhammad Arifuddin bin Arifin, head of program, Bachelor of Quantity Surveying, School of Architecture and Built Environment, UCSI University. Please welcome.
Okay, Assalamualaikum. Very good afternoon or late evening already to our distinguished guests and our attendees. I think we'll run through a lot of the things that we wanted to discuss for this session, as actually a lot of it has been covered in the first session. But inshallah, we will do a quick discussions on related to the second topic. So with me today, I have our distinguished panel of speakers. On my utmost right, we have Mr. Jalalulail Osman. He's a member of the steering committee who was instrumental in the drafting of the i-SFC. Next to him is Mr. Mohamed Arifuddin Arifin. He's head of the quantity surveying program at the School of Architecture and Built Environment, UCSI University. And right next to me here is Professor Datuk Dr. Syed Osman Al-Habshi, another distinguished member of the steering committee. So I think for the topic, the related topic, a lot of the maybe what we can do is to discuss, particularly with the two members of the steering committee, what aspects or what are the issues that they encountered when they reviewed the contracts and have it compliant with Sharia, and what issues were considered as methodologies adopted that they felt relevant to apply to make the contract Sharia compliant or Sharia inclusive contract.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, basically what we encountered is a very interesting work situation with Tun Zaki as the chairman. It was very difficult for us to say no, and so much so that one of the things that happened was he cut down the timeline from 1 year to 6 months. And that is because he made sure that everyone attends the meeting every week on Friday, every Friday, right? So without fail. I personally almost did not fail at all. So because of that, if Tun Zaki is not around, I have to chair the meeting. Yeah, at least one. Yeah, yeah. You miss one, so I chaired only once. And sometimes he even asked if we could have 2 days in a week. Oh, one a week is enough. No, 2 days in a week. It was very difficult to arrange. Anyway, that's one. What I'm trying to say is that it is all because of him that we managed to do this successfully in time. Without his, aggressive push and turn and so on, I don't think we could finish that early, that fast, And we were so efficient in the sense that he will point out whatever is not to his favor or to our favor immediately, but he will apologize immediately after that, right? So that's a great gentleman. Yeah. No, don't talk about gentleman. I remember a particular joke which was given by some ustaz in Indonesia. He said, if you have 2 wives, that means you are very good at managing things. But if you have 3, you are better. If you have 4, you are the best. Yeah. So when you have 4, he said, you are the Superman. When you have 3, you are gentleman. When you have 2, you are real man. What about 1? You are chairman. So all of us, most of us are chairman. What about those who don't have? No comment. Anyway, jokes aside, what I think has happened is something that I learned very much as well, and that is the discipline of actually doing things in a very focused manner. Discipline in doing things in a very focused manner. He will definitely make sure that all of us, number 1, try to attend. Number 2, try to look through every particular clause and then make comments on our own. Right? Now, when we comment, it doesn't mean that all of us agree from first minute. There will be certain disagreement, but somehow there will be, at the end, there will be a consensus. Yeah? It's because of the convincing reasoning that is being given by someone who is more knowledgeable probably or more experienced in certain sessions, and therefore we have to agree, right? But I think almost every issue that was raised were debated very profusely, and at the same time we managed to get most of the issues concluded in a very friendly manner. Yeah, very friendly manner. And it's all on consensus, and that's the best thing. Now, one of the things that was mentioned just now as well, also in the meeting, is about the istisna. I would like to extend a little bit about istisna. Istisna is a manufacturing contract. In Islam, in Sharia, every contract has certain names attached to it. So when we talk about manufacturing contract, it means that we are making an order. We are placing an order for a particular product to be manufactured in the future, right? That is called istisna. That particular contract is called istisna. The moment it is called an istisna, right, then all the principles along it has to be outlined. So the moment we talk about istisna, you know what are the principles, right? In line with that, or in parallel with that, is what is called as a contract of salam. Salam is also a similar contract, but not for manufacturing, but it's more for agricultural products. So the moment we say it is a salam contract, it is quite different from istisna, because istisna is only for manufacturing. but salam is more for agriculture. Therefore, the conditions for salam will be slightly different from the conditions for manufacturing. That is why names of contracts in Sharia is very, very important. So we were talking about most of the time, in fact, all the time, we were talking about istisna contract, which is a manufacturing contract. It has all the principles laid down already by the Sharia experts. So there is no problem there, right? So that's one. That's why we have to Google, Bank Negara, AUFI and all that, to find out what are the different views of various Sharia scholars from time to time, from different regions and so on, to see which particular one. Most of the time they are in line anyway, right? But sometimes they may differ. So that is one thing that I think is very, very important to understand. Why it makes things simpler for us. It is make things simpler for us. Otherwise, it will be very, very difficult, because you cannot be coming up with principles for a certain contract just like that. It is all there, but you have to know where to find it. So I think I stopped there for a while. Thank you very much, because Tun said make it short.
Encik Jah, did the committee encounter any divergence of opinions when you were reviewing the contracts and making the amendments, and how it was dealt with?
Short answer is yes, we did, and I think we did on many occasions, perhaps I could sort of ventilate that as we go through the process. I just wanted to take a very quick couple of minutes. It's unfortunate that we started late, because Dato and I, we actually had wanted a bit of airtime to do some tune bashing. After 6 months of torture. No, sorry. But I don't want to miss the opportunity, so I just want to say one thing. Since Tun came into our lives, our Fridays were never the same. So before Tun, it was thank God it's Friday. After Tun, it's oh my God, it's Friday. But coming back to the question, we had a lot of differences of view, and I just want to touch on how we had approached the matter. You see, when we all started, we were asking ourselves one question that was rather perplexing. We asked ourselves, this is a brick and mortar contract, yeah? What has Sharia got to do with that at all? If we did not find an answer to that, we thought we probably could not be doing the job well enough, right? Because you need to find a purpose before you carry out your task, right? And that was set by Tun clearly on day one, which is, he set out the purpose. And the purpose was a couple of pillars. Number one, we said to ourselves, we're not going to reinvent the wheel. That made the job tougher, because it's always easy to invent something than not to reinvent. And the reason why we had to do that was because we were conscious that we had to strike a good balance between making it Sharia compliant and also making it marketable. Yeah. So we did not want it to make it so kosher that no one actually wants to touch it. So that was that first challenge. And the second challenge was we then had to tell ourselves, we started 1983 for Islamic finance, and we're here now, and we tell ourselves, Alhamdulillah, we're quite good at it. And we're probably maybe the best in the world, right? But then we got a problem, because this SFC and i-SFC is not an Islamic finance contract. It has Sharia principles. The principles overlap a lot with Islamic finance, but it isn't a financing contract. So we had to almost overnight change the entire mindset, because for Islamic finance, we asked ourselves a whole set of different questions, right? So that was the second challenge. Then came the third challenge. The third challenge was that Sharia as a corpus of law, as you know, is what we call mono-jurisdictional. You don't have a Malaysian Sharia law, you don't have a Pakistan Sharia law, you just have a Sharia law, right? Because that's God-made rather than man-made, yes? So there comes the challenge, because Malaysia, as you know, is a dual system, right? The rest of the countries, for example, in Pakistan and Sudan, they got an easier life because they just had to take one or the other. Here we got to balance both. So how would that have translated into a challenge when we did the documents? I'll just give you a simple example. LAD, liquidated damages, right? If you're doing the conventional one, you need only consider, the line of cases on LAD and your section 74 and 75, the Contracts Act, and how cubic technology has changed all of that and so on. Complicated as it already is, but doable, yes? Now, if you were in the country of Pakistan, you ignore all of that and you just look at the Sharia, right? Complicated, but doable, right? And then we have ourselves in Malaysia, right? So we can't say no to one and we can't say no to the other. And so we had to combine and balance those two, which became a greater challenge. So at the end of the day, we are hoping that the product of the LED, I'm just using that as an example, the product of the LED that you see in this contract is something that gives you the best of both worlds. And I dare say that we probably are the only country in the world that can come up with that because of the peculiarity of our dual system. Yeah. So a lot of us keep complaining to say life is so tough, right? Because we've got to take care of two things. This is an occasion where you benefit from that tough life because no other country in the world does this, right? I just take my final point if I get back to you, Sharif. So when we had gone through all of those, and I think a lot of those principles were already ventilated in the first session, I do want to manage some expectations, right? You see, what we went through in that 6 months of, I call it the Tun torture. That's quite catchy, again, the Tun torture. What we went through in that 6 months was to achieve an objective. The objective was to have a contract that is before you, right? That is fair, equitable, and all that is Sharia, right? But we have to remember one thing, right? A huge part, or rather the other half portion of the life of Sharia is in the execution, in the performance, in the implementation of it, right? Right. The Sharia thread continues on that line, right? This is not a manual for life or a manual of life, right? But it is a basis which we told ourselves, this is the perimeter. And I think this is Tun's phrase. We do a perimeter fencing, right? We're not going to tell you so much and we give you flexibility how to play ball within the park. We just make sure that you don't leave the park. I think that's where we are. So I just stop here first at this stage.
Do you think that the i-SFC contracts will be palatable to non-Muslims as well? Or is it something that non-Muslims will be wary to use?
Okay, I will take first and then perhaps, yeah. Short answer is I think the non-Muslims will jump at it. I have no problems in that respect, precisely because what appeals is not this magic word or Sharia, right? There is no magic in that word, right? But there is a whole lot of magic in the principles that come out from it, right? So the non-Muslims appreciate a fairer contract, yeah? A conventional building contract, as you know, just as its industry, is notoriously one-sided or lopsided, right? This is an opportunity to recalibrate that, to make it, that equilibrium. Yeah. So fairness, equitable. So quick examples. We touch on principles of proportionality, right? Yes, you may be in breach, but everyone deserves a second chance approach. And we talk about principles of proportionality of compensation. We talk about principles of rationality. We talk about the principle of reciprocity, right? You whack me, I whack you. kind of thing. I give you, you give me. So all of that, if you look at the conventional contract, has not been in there. So the short point is that any person who is attracted to a more equitable contract would be attracted to this contract, whether there are Muslims or there are non-Muslims.
That's coming from the lawyers. What about the industry player here? What do you think about it?
Hello. Okay. First and foremost, I must say that I feel very timid sitting in between the Sharia committees. Sorry, the steering committees and also Tun, and as well as the sitting judges. But to be fair, yes, I think that would there would be a certain level of acceptance by the industry, but it falls on how AIAC is going to market it. The issue that we are having so far with the construction industry is their refusal to adopt anything with related with Sharia. That's the most glaring part, I think. And this refusal, I believe this is because they cannot fathom what Sharia is. And I think they feel very scared hearing the word Sharia itself. And this is basically a truth, not just from the perspective of academia, but also from the perspective of the player in the industry. So I think, if I may touch a little bit on the i-SFC, I think a certain few things in the i-SFC would be a very good start for AIAC to market it. For example, the employment of clause 34, the AAB, in which I would commend AIAC and the steering committee for including it, which I think the first building contract in Malaysia that incorporates dispute avoidance and adjudication board. And from my shallow perspective of a QS and also somebody who trying to advocate Sharia in construction, dispute avoidance is actually a creature of Sharia as well, because Sharia always advocate mitigating the dispute, mitigating the conflict before it escalates to become a dispute. So I like that clause very much, and I think that I would commend the steering committee led by Tun and also my two co-panelists here. So, and I think that would be a very good selling point, so-called selling point to the industry. Among others. And the principle of fairness, like Encik Jal has said just now. For example, if I'm not mistaken, it was embedded in clause 4.4, where both parties need to indemnify each other, in which I think AIAC, i-SFC has departed from the normal practice of the construction industry. If you go through, if I may say, PWD or PAM, only contractor needs to indemnify the client, and I think that would be a very good start. And this is a very good start, and I believe if AIAC managed to market it well, with Malaysia as a start, this could be accepted worldwide.
So the chances are there is a certain shift in the practice, the market practice, but do you foresee acceptability to?
Well, I'm speaking. I'm wearing my academic hat right now. Based on the research done by Prof and also certain few other people, there are a certain level of awareness. So if AIAC could tap on this awareness and compel them to accept, then that would be, I think, that would trigger the acceptance by the industry. However, having said so, it's not an easy task. I think that would be the next task of the steering committee.
if I may say, just add a little bit, I think the biggest client will be the government, right? As we were told by Professor Khairudin just now as well, that the biggest client is really the government. So I think if we can convince the government, the JKR, to accept it, then we have solved the problem about 50%, as Mubashir also was saying that, which is true. When we started Islamic finance in 1983, we did not start with the government. We did not start with the government. We started with the government with the housing loan only in much later, right? But we should have started earlier, right? But I think in this particular case, we should go to the government and get them to accept this. If once they accept this, then it's easier for the rest, to follow. And you have got a very big market already with that. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, I think I've got just one last question. I think the objective, of course, naturally is to sell it internally first, but we do look at foreign jurisdictions as well. Do you foresee this being accepted by foreign countries the way it's amended now?
There are already, for example, certain countries have already started to have their own Sharia principles embedded in the contract. But it's not complete in that sense. It's not complete. Ours is more complete, I think, in this case, but theirs is not complete. Yeah. So I think, in other words, what it shows is that they don't have that confidence to actually complete it. In other words, they are worried that it is not going to be completely acceptable. I think that's the reason. Yeah. If they can complete it, that means they have confidence that people will accept it. But as it is now, yes, we have to start it here. We have to start it here. And I remember, even in Saudi, the monetary authority of Saudi have asked Tan Sri Zaki, the Bank Negara governor at that time, to coach them about Islamic finance framework to that extent. In other words, they don't have what we have, right? We have done much more than them. So to me, it is, as Tun was saying, we have to start it here. And when we have already we have been very successful here, it's easier for us to go out. But if we try outside first, not JKR, yeah. JKR, yeah, definitely, yeah.
That will be quite a challenge because a lot of these government contracts, they're quite pro one party. So to have that, it's probably quite a challenge, but it's something that we need to try and promote, inshallah. So do you have any other things to add before I open to the floor for Q&A?
Another thing that I feel that AIAC, i-SFC has advantage over other types of contracts in Malaysia, it would be the part where, where i-SFC incorporates the level of fairness and equality in the contract. So that would be a very good selling point. But and also this another thing that I think that is very good is the customization. However, I have also some reservation about it, whether i-SFC would be can be liberally customized. That's another issue. But so far, if i-SFC allows customization, that would at a certain level give authority to the parties to form the contract based on their needs. However, this must be tread carefully because, having said so, i-SFC embody the principles of Sharia. So we might, like Encik Jal said just now, we don't want them to go out from the perimeter. of the Sharia itself. So I think that's an addition from me.
Can I just add a couple of things, Shafiqa? I think short answer to your question, do you think we would have a challenge if we were to market this overseas? I think my short answer is no. And I've got just about 3 points to why I say no. I think number one, we have great leadership in Islamic finance globally, and we certainly can leverage on this. So when you talk about Sharia or Islamic finance, and when Malaysia speaks about that, then the world listens. And so I think it's just a matter of strategy if we should be sort of putting this in tandem and riding with that. I mean, that's the first point. The second point is that in all things, you know, the test of the pudding is always in the eating. And as Tun has mentioned, we must start it here first, right? You can't be a good salesman of a Ferrari if you haven't driven it, right? I mean, that's just the point we're making. So we got to start here first. Final points, we need a little bit of push and nudge. I mean, we are Malaysians, like that's what we need. Someone just needs to nudge us a little. And I think it's got to be top down, right? From some governmental regulatory push. I don't think it's a very out of this world notion, because if you look at the whole sustainability card, we are doing that anyway, right? We started by saying, you know, try not to use plastic bags. And then after that, we say you cannot. And everybody's fine with that. And we are not doing it anymore. So if we can have that on the sustainability card, which is more is more a popular card, kan? Sustainability. We should just be able to transpose and translate that over here. So I don't think so. So if we have got these three, number one, get ourselves to consume it first, it meaning the contract. Number two, take our leadership in global Islamic finance and leverage on this and push it out. I don't think it's a Herculean task.
So quickly, can I just open to the floor if there's any questions from anyone? Yes, please.
You need the mic, I think. You want the mic? Is it easier? Yeah, someone is coming, I think, to help at the back. Yeah.
I'm only a QS, so engineering is not my area of expertise. Now, I heard that apparently this particular contract has got footnotes giving a bit of an explanation and so on. But in maybe my phone version doesn't have it. I presume if I looked at it on the computer, I'll be able to see it. That's just a general question, because that'll be very useful for us to understand in what way it's sort of Sharia compliant. The second one is on the comment on within Malaysia. Yes, within Malaysia, we can push. We can have the push factor and get government to use it, get JLCs to use it and all that. But the minute you go overseas, it's got to be a pull factor. In other words, it's got to be used on the basis of its attractiveness, not because it's going to be implemented. Generally, outside Malaysia, you cannot force people. You've got to make it attractive. And that brings me to the point about its attractiveness. It appears that there's a lot of good concepts. You can call it Sharia principles, but it's embedded within it, like the equitable principles, good faith, the mediation or DAB and all that. The problem is this, the word Islamic, once we're outside Malaysia and some other countries, the perception is that, chop off hands, hudud, that's what they remember. A bit like the Babylonian days, if a builder builds and the building collapses, they shall be put to death, remember? So the perception is there. So I'm just wondering at some point, given that the contract already has Sharia principles, over the years, could that I be dropped?
Shall I? I'll just start quickly and then we'll move here. Okay. It's always tactically good to start first, because then you don't lose out of any points to talk about. Okay, just to take those points in quick responses. I think number one, the footnotes and the explanatory notes. Yes, well, that's Tun's idea. And we wanted to do a combo enhancement of the house breeze and Hansard. So if you look at it, right? But there's a bigger purpose in just putting those notes there, which was what Tun alluded to earlier. Before we went into all the principles of Sharia, we started with one primary principle, which is knowledge is always sharing. And that was the purpose why we had put the notes down, because we say to all of you, well, we think this is the way we should be doing it. We think we are fairly clever, right? But we obviously may not be the most clever. And so therefore, please come and help us. I think that was the whole purpose too. Am I correct? On that score. Right. So just on the footnotes. Number two, yes, this whole Islamic phobia kind of, thing that's attaching to the word Islamic, absolutely correct. We had that experience, or rather you can call it, we had that nightmare when we had the whole Islamic finance journey that we took, right? But what we did was we stuck to our guns and we said, well, the whole way to counter all of this is really for you to be articulating it in the best of manner, right? And we shouldn't be selling ourselves short, right? That's the problem with us. I mean, we're all clever people, we are, but the whole thing is that we tend to be selling ourselves short, overseas. That's the whole point, right? And we are trying to do this, and we've got to make sure that this is our baby, and therefore we should not be selling ourselves short. Incidentally, if you just take by ironic reasons, right? I mean, if you're going to one good area, you're going to sell it is in Dubai, am I right? And that's where all the construction is, right? Right. I mean, just take a moment to think about it. I mean, you've got a Malaysian who's sitting there as a judge. So, number one. Number two, this chap also is crafting this contract. Number three, why shouldn't that part of the world buy in, right? Unless, of course, they look at this chap and they say that he's going to chop my hands off, right? Which is way off. So, I mean, that's just the point I'm making. Thank you.
I'm not part of the steering committee. No, I'm working for AIAC. But I think whether or not I should be dropped is for us to think in the future. But so far, having said so, I think AIAC has made a good point with arbitration rules, for example, in which I believe it has been accepted by the communities worldwide, in which they have always constantly updating it. Yeah. So I think that I wouldn't pose a big risk towards the contract. And this is my personal opinion. Thank you.
I think the word we are doing this, of course, for the Muslims to comply with the Sharia. That's one thing. But their second aspect is, while doing it, we realize that, as been said many times earlier, the terms become fairer, more balance between the contractor and the employer. So if you promote this part of it, the aspect that is a fairer term, forget about Islam part of it, just like Islamic finance, as just like you many mentioned just now, a lot of non-Muslims are borrowing money on Islamic finance thing. So why not? It's just a matter of promoting it, and explaining to people at the end of the day, this is what you will benefit. And then once you do that, once people recognize that the contractor, of course, the contractor is always in a worse position. The reason he is looking for the job, the employer will tender out. There'll be 10 contractors bidding for that job. So normally it's the contractor who determines. But as I said, if the government, JKR, in particular says you want to do contract with the government, this is the format. And then once you start doing it, and then the contract say A is fair, other employers say is fair, then everybody will just follow. You have to start with the government, whether you like it or not. They're the biggest employer, the employers. And secondly, I was whispering to Dato, maybe we should have a seminar, invite the minister. You want promotion, you want publicity in this country, you need to invite the minister. Otherwise, so unfortunately, well, no, it doesn't make a difference. The minister is a Christian, Richard Nanking. I know him personally. I can speak to him. You want to invite him. So let's invite him and then get the top people to be present, and then hopefully it will catch up. Thank you.
Thank you, Tun. Any other questions? Okay, we have one question online. It's from Salma Bernayet. Question is, in which areas, except finance, Sharia principles can shape the actual economic policy in Africa and in North Africa particularly? Yeah. Okay, in which areas except for finance, Sharia principles can shape the actual economic policy in Africa and in North Africa particularly?
I think when you talk about Sharia principles for the development of a particular region, particular country, what is required in the North African countries, for example, is the distribution of wealth. When you talk about fair distribution of wealth, that is coming from Islamic principles, right? Now, that is why in Islam, we are supposed to encourage strongly for people to spend out of whatever provisions they get for the others, right? In other words, the society has to be more equitable, right? And once the society is more equitable in that sense, I mean, everybody has somewhat enough to live and so on, then the society will be better off. I think for most of such countries, one of the biggest problems is unequal distribution of wealth. And unequal distribution of wealth can also be made worse by, I'm sorry to say, poor leadership, right? And that is happening in many parts of the world as well. So I think with Islamic principle, forcing people to behave in a very moral and ethical manner will definitely improve the situation. I believe that is the most important principle that should be implemented, but unfortunately it is not easy. Thank you.
Just add one or two, though it's not my area and it's also not the i-SFC. But I think I know the question says exclude finance, but really finance is like blood in the veins of the economy, right? A couple of quick points in addition to what Dato has mentioned. I think redistribution is important. Supply chain is important. A financial system that equates more and relates more to the real economy is important. Principles where investors are more profit and risk sharing orientated rather than a debt approach is important, especially for North Africa countries that are going to be building up. I think these are important. And also social finance, social net is important because everything boils down to society anyway. And final point to follow up on what Dato has mentioned, again, it all comes back to the leadership point, right? That's critical. And that really is where Sharia says to you, if you want to be up there, well, you are up there, but there is a heavy burden, is what Sharia says. Thank you.
Thank you. So I think that's the only question we have. With that, I thank you all, our learned speakers, and we end the session today, inshallah.
Thank you to our panel of speakers and moderator for the insightful keynotes, insightful sessions. May I kindly request the panel to remain on stage. I now invite Datuk Sri Zaki to present a token of appreciation to the panel and moderator on behalf of the AIAC. Thank you once again to our speakers and moderator. Ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end of the official launch of the AIAC i-SFC 2024. On behalf of the AIAC, we like to thank once again to the panelists for making this possible, and to all attendees physically and virtually. We look forward to hosting you all at future events at the AIAC. Without taking much more of your time, may I invite you all to join us for the networking session at the private dining area and outdoor cafe at the lower ground floor. Thank you very much and have a good evening. Thank you.